And I'm giving you, okay, got it. I'm giving you how it was in our situation, not necessarily my view. But people were initially designated as black or white, but we have a huge population which is considered mixed race.
Right.
And those people were always referred to as coloreds. So there were coloreds, black, white, Indians, and Chinese. Those were the designations in South Africa. And after apartheid, they didn't know what to do with the colored people, and they tried to change the designation. And there was a huge outcry. These people wanted to be known as colored population. And the interesting thing, I mean, it's in terms of the wound of the nation, it's fascinating because colored people's language is Afrikaans, which is the language of the oppressor. So they caused this, they were the open wound of the society. They represented that. And sometimes when people came from other countries to help us sort out our problem, they tried to get rid of that label. And the colored people fought for it because it's how they identify themselves. So there comes the interesting element of identity. And, you know, when Barack Obama was voted in, I remember watching it and watching to see if he was coming in. It's our morning when it was their evening. And so I put the TV on, which is unusual. And the lady that had come to clean the house, I was saying, come and have a look. I'm sure he's going to come in or whatever. So we stood there waiting for it. And in he came. And I was excited. I was jumping up and down. He's a black president. And she was looking at the screen. I said, can't you see him? She says, he's not. He's a colored. Mm-hmm. He's not black.
No, it's true.
Yeah. And I was so taken aback, and that's when I saw how my view was encompassing, and I thought it was like this, but her view was not like that.
No.
And she turned and walked out. She was finished with the whole story. And in fact, our Seattle, we have Seattle coffee here in South Africa, and they have this little rhythm where they shout the name of the coffee to the barista. You pay here and you order here, and they shout it there. And at that time, I was standing in the queue in the bookshop waiting for the coffee, and the guy in front of me ordered, and the person taking the order shouted, Obama. And the guy said, but I ordered, so he said, yes, she ordered Americano with milk. Okay. And that's how it became colloquial. And this was fascinating to me that, I mean, here I was, I've been raised in this country. I didn't have those kind of divisiveness. My most favorite person was my Zulu mother, and I thought I was adopted and that she was actually my mother because all of that confusion. So every time I drew things as a 3-year-old, I drew her as my mother. So I didn't come into it with that. And there's now a place in South Africa where we connect as people. We're wanting the space to work. We work together. We live together. We live side by side. What the politicians do is something completely separate. So again, I see that the divisiveness, any system labeling process which says you in, you out, you this, you that, it's actually the process of divisiveness, of polarizing, of duality that's causing any kind of issue. So I don't know if that's all for me what nestles in race. And if I fill in a document, like it doesn't happen anymore, but if we had to fill in a document for travel or whatever, and it had race, I would put a cross. Because I refused to participate in that. And many people did that. They would say something ridiculous, like Mickey Mouse or no, or because it doesn't bear witness to anything of I think it's the same as with any label. As soon as we label something good or bad, we have to understand the map or the personal construct of the word before we can dialogue with it.
Okay, so I asked everyone to express, and I hear your version, and there are different versions. And we haven't heard from Kamna.
Yeah, when I first heard your question, Kathleen, to me it's a lineage. It's like a line that came to me in that minute, that we all have our own lineage, our own ancestry, where we come from. And the further back we go in our own ancestry, the more unfocused it becomes. We all came from, I think, the same human being so many thousand years ago. And then we because of weather, because of where we lived, or habits of food and whatever, we started to become different. And somebody called it identity, somebody called it race, somebody called it family, lineage. So, and as I hear everyone speak, I think it is about groupism. An American friend of mine used to say, you blame the Americans for selling arms to the East, but we are all tribal. We like tribes. That's who we are as human beings, and we create divides. And I think race is a very good one, because it's there in everyday life in each of us. So it's a very divisive and a very good way of dividing ourselves. Actually, it shouldn't be there at all, I think. And I agree that if there was a possibility of saying, I don't know my race, I would say that, because I'm a product of a lot of those things. And yes, I suffer from it and I deal with it. But if I could erase it, I would.
Yeah. In some of the stories, and I'd just like to invite you to sort of think about and feel back through the stories that different people have told. So when we're looking at this question of race, we can see that it's very multifaceted. And we can also see that it touches a lot of emotion. And race is something that is defined by us, but it's something that's also defined by a greater group culture mindset. So I'm going to put out some definitions around race. And if we go back to the very biological part, we know that if you take human beings, and in fact, if you take human beings and other mammals, there's not a lot of differences when they do the genomes to see how we're put together. And if we look at race from a societal point of view, and someone said race was about color, I think it was Beverly, you said you saw color. There's a word which is called colorism. There's a word which is called pigmentocracy. And you can see that something happened 400 or 500 years ago. And what we see is that the lighter you are, the closer to white you are, the more beautiful, the more intelligent, the more civilized you are considered to be. And this brings us to this question of something which is a systemic racism. It's in the system. Something which is an institutional racism. So we have institutions that uphold that and keep it going. We have interpersonal racism, which is how do I respond to you as a person? And then we have something which is internalized racism, interior racism. So what we can see is that if you're a woman in India and your skin color is close to black, you're going to be told that you're less beautiful. You're going to have less facility finding a husband. That if you go to the newspaper and look at the newspapers at the ads for looking for a bride, looking for a husband, they want fair. They want closer to white. They want closer to white. And you will have a societal problem in India of women putting bleach on their skin that destroys their skin and creates health problems so that they'll be light. Because to be light gives you a societal value. It'll give you a societal value in terms of a romantic partner, and it'll give you societal value in terms of employment. Now, if you move from India to Nigeria, Nigeria is an African country where people are black and very dark and black. And one of the major health problems for women is that they bleach their skin light and they put chemicals in their hair to get straight hair. Because the lighter you are and the straighter hair you have, the more desirable, the more beautiful you are. And you have a phenomenon where most women wear synthetic hair that's straight so you can toss it. Because to be feminine is to be able to toss it. And if you have kinky hair, you ain't got nothing to toss. And you will see that the colorism or the pigmentocracy works in terms of romantic partners and works also in terms of employment and what's considered good. So I could go to China, and I remember working with the people from L'Oreal who said that there are no beauty products in Southeast Asia that don't have lightening in them, because whitening elements is part of selling it. And in many places within Black communities, there's black and there's brown and there's cream and there's cafe au lait and there's yellow and there's high yellow, and there are all these pigmentocracy. That's another perspective when we're talking about race, is we're talking about how is it perceived from the inside and how is it perceived from the outside, the value of you as a beautiful, intelligent, employable, marriable person. And before you answer that, I would just like you to breathe that in. And what does it feel like in your body when the color of your skin needs to be changed to have a good chance of getting married, to be considered beautiful? How does that feel? And where do you feel it in your body? Anne.
Yeah, I find it very disturbing, and my heart aches that this exists in our world. Even among white people, There's a thing about being tanned that I've never bought into because I don't like skin cancer. I don't like the idea of getting skin cancer. It all just seems to feed into the same thing, that you've somehow, what you're born with and what you present as in your natural state is somehow not enough, and I don't like it. And I struggle with it.
So how does it feel in your body?
Yeah, it feels like like a barrier around my heart, a tightness.
Mm-hmm. Beverly, you're muted.
Well, first of all, I could cry right this minute. So that's a feeling. But before I felt the tears, I felt nauseous in my belly. It literally makes me sick. I do want to say, which I've never thought of, which Anne just talked about, that my whole life, and I have elephant skin on my legs to prove it, I have tried to get until the last 20 years, I have tried to be the darkest I ever could. I don't even know what that means. I've never had this thought until you were just saying what you said, that my whole life I had ultraviolet, whatever they're called, sun lamps. I've in Canada sat in the winter with sun reflectors to be as dark as I could. I went to Florida every year, and the darker I could be till my skin had a bluish tint, that's what I wanted, and that's what was beautiful. And I really do have the wrinkles to prove it. So that is interesting to me, because it is going in the opposite thing of what you described, because I do know about in Asia, everything is about being light, and it makes sense to me. So that's really weird. But that nausea, there's a nausea about the idea that if your skin color is too dark, it's such an essential rejection. It makes me sick. You know what I mean? Like if you can't be enough because your skin is too dark, it's so essential to your being. It feels very painful.
Susan.
Yeah. So the initial impact is pain. I feel it in my chest, in my heart area, and a shrinking, like a pulling back sensation, a shrinking of self, that if for any reason the essence can't shine, I find is just horrific, and that it can be through something so it's like a generalized agreement where we don't find the origin. It's very disturbing.
So you find the origin.
Well, it's not prevalent in the initial state. So just wanting lighter or whatever is doesn't represent itself in terms of, like I've got clients, Indian clients, and it took a while to really recognize that the one lady, what she's most struggling with, without going into the detail, is when she was born of parents that were very light. She was not light, and all the people had gathered in the street to welcome her. And when they saw that she wasn't like her parents, they all left. And she grew up with that, and nobody really ever agreed to it. Her parents didn't agree to it, her family didn't agree to it, but her sister arrived lighter, and her sister didn't have that. And that's just, you know, I see how she wrangles with that, and yet the family never agreed to it, never bought into it. So I think from the perspective of anything that denies the expression of essence, I mean, we have it differently in different cultures. This is not the only one. So anywhere where it's represented, I find abhorrent and very painful.
But when you said there was no agreement, that's not true, because there's an agreement that the lighter you are, the more power, influence, money, and beautiful and valuable you are.
Well, it's a buy-in. People either have it or they don't.
You can say that on an interpersonal level.
Her family said that.
I beg your
But they
pardon?
never subscribed. No, her family, the Indian family.
Okay, but I would like to remind you there's internalized racism, there's interpersonal racism, there's institutional racism, and there's systemic racism. How many images of beautiful dark women do you have on television?
Lots, yeah. Loads.
Now?
Yeah. For years.
Now?
It's not a new thing. And I remember one of my friends at university, her parents were very worried because she wanted to marry a Nigerian man and he was dark. That was their only complaint about him. They kept saying that he's black. And she's from Zimbabwe, and
I hear what you're saying, but images of beauty in South Africa, I hear what you're saying, and there are other points of view about how it's not easy to be black and considered beautiful in South Africa.
Yeah. I think less now. I recognize that in a global sense, we're still struggling, but it's fascinating to see how readily it's been embraced. And even in terms of hair, you know, that Black people are encouraged to embrace and love their hair. In fact, we had a huge issue and a huge court case where a Black man who was running, it was a chain store of chemists, had apparently said the wrong thing on an advert. And, you know, there was a huge outcry. So it's very different. I mean, I do think that, I don't know. I've got a lot more to say on that, but I'm aware of time.
But this question of how it feels, that the color of your skin, and that's an internalized issue, and it's also a systemic issue.
Yeah.
Okay. And for example, when I was growing up, I was very aware of dark, light, good hair. That was a really big thing about good hair. Now I keep it all cut off. I don't have to deal with that subject. And what was and still is very sad for me is that in 2022, whether I be in the United States or the UK or France, when I look at African descended women, most of them are not wearing their hair. They're wearing synthetic straight hair.
So what's really interesting is for the last several years, many years here in South Africa, how, especially the young girls, how they choose is becoming quite interesting. Because there are still some that have, they look like dreadlocks, but they're tiny plaits. But they're weaves, what they call weaves. So they're woven into the hair, but they're long. So they can swish them.
Yeah. And
there's certain sectors of the population that are completely opposed to that want the hair. You know, they're very beautifully shaped. They have hairdressers that plait and twist the hair into the most incredible patterns. Exquisite. It's like a work of art. So they prefer that.
But what's the swish?
The long hair.
No, but what's this? What's the value of the swish? If you take it in your body, what's the value of the swish?
I think it's something to do with flaunting. That's why you normally see it in the young women and not the older women.
The African hair doesn't swish.
No, it doesn't swish. That's why I'm saying there's interesting.
But and I'm asking you, what does it feel like?
To me.
Yeah.
I've never had it, so I don't know.
Yeah. It's to take in the feeling of it. Because there's this question around race, which is in our bodies. I mean, and it's really very body, and it's very systemic, and it's not just interpersonal, whether I like it or don't like it.
It feels, it actually feels feminine to me if I take it into my body, the swish, even with the weaves. So that's interesting that is my internal idea of feminine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point.
For me, it's not. I think it's because I like natural. So for me, the long artificial hair doesn't bring anything pleasurable for me. Excuse me.
Yeah, but I was asking you about the swish and and there's something that has been vehicled in society about feminine. Kamnor Bilonda.
Yeah, it's interesting for me to listen to everybody. I don't know what to say, to be honest, because I mean, I am light skinned African. I am in so many positions when it comes to this, in terms of projections on me from white people, from Black people. I've had my own healing story. What I have is I brought a picture. I have one picture of me, because not being comfortable with my Blackness had a huge impact on how I look. And so it's the only photo actually that I have. I don't know if you can see that. That has been me when I was, I don't know, 25, 6.
Okay.
I've had eating disorder, like bulimia, really heavy. I was in a prison. If you ask me how it is in a darker skin, what immediately comes is I know how it was for me to think I live in a prison, because if I go outside and it's raining, my hair is getting wet and my hair is getting curly. That is, what is this? I had no idea how to deal with my hair. Also, my family, my mother is German and has that beautiful long, or had that beautiful long swoosh hair. And my father was African, so my mother had no skills how to treat our hair. So what she did is basically cut it. Looks so sweet, but I want to look like a girl. It looks so sweet. So we had all this kind of discussions and no understanding, and I didn't understand what went wrong. I just perceived myself as really ugly. On top, I was light. My sister is darker than I am. My father is darker. And you know, to heal, I had to think about lots of things. What is it really for me? And I also thought about, you know, the Black women. And I believe, I do know, you feel it. There are lots of men also, they like the energy of really Black women, but the perversion is that they are not allowed to be in their beauty because it is not perceived as beautiful, and actually it is amazingly beautiful. this. And there are women that are amazingly beautiful, or black skin can be like beautiful, because there's beautiful skin and there's not beautiful skin, and it can be of any kind of color and texture. And that perversion that comes along with that is for me a kind of really a violence which is done to bodies on a level that I can hardly express, because it is. I come from my aunt always wore her natural hair, and she says about my aunt is also a little bit lighter, so there must be somebody lighter in my father's lineage. But she's nobody's as me, because I'm like really I have blue eyes and but she said like my grandmother, she was bien noire, like she was good black. And so I really, when it comes to that,
What is good black? Do you mind me asking? What is good black?
Good black, like really dark.
Okay.
Like you have good, like dark, beautiful dark skin. Bien noir. And
that feels great in my body.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I also embody a beautiful woman, but I also see like how beautiful like certain people are, and black skin can be, and as I say, it's a cruelty on a very strange level. And of course, I also had the swoosh. Why can I make this? And there's lots of things going wrong with that. I really suffered from the prison that I felt I'm living in, because I you try to oppress something in yourself, and by that you become I became really uglier. And when I see people like women, they do that all, black women who do that all to them, and I see me in them when I was younger. And now I can be even without makeup, and I have no sills. That's German. I have the hair, it's like I have the nose. And it is so important that everybody embodies and finds and gets stimulated to develop their own beauty, because that is the beauty later. And I mean beauty, with beauty I mean like an unfolding that is like I can research how to deal with my hair, like really research. I can I can find like which color is fitting me. Maybe my skin is super dark, which colors are really good with my skin. And if this is not, now it's happening. I see that. I see lots of black friends, and I see there's like so much possibilities right now. And I adore this, to be honest. I feel the new generations are really, there are things they don't have. And I feel it's beautiful. And there's so much allowance and crisscross and queer people, and it also everything comes together in that, hey, I want to explore, and I want to give myself my identity, or I want to define as what I identify also. And that can change, that can be fluid, but it's an I in it. And that brings an important oneness in terms, I feel, of power. Because I felt always disempowered by all that struggles of oppressing that. Who am I? Maybe this will come out too much. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I spoke long. It is deep pain that I feel, if that is a deep wound that can be done to people and to minds and to bodies, really deep. There's one thing, there's this young man here, and he's 14, and he's half Martinique, half German. And the most of his issues are about his hair and how ugly he is and how beautiful curls are, especially if they are blonde or long straight hair. The white men, they look like princes, like a prince. Difficult. And he's beautiful. If you would see him, he's beautiful. He has amazing smile, lips, eyes. Oh, a lion. Yeah. It's really sad. It's really sad. Yeah.
Let's take a breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just, you know, just to take in what Belanda has shared around this journey around color and hair and acceptance from inside, and the gaze of the other. And calm down.
Yeah, it's really interesting. What Susan was saying about South Africa and then Belanda about acceptance. I think it's about, and beauty and acceptance become mixed up somehow in a child's mind. And that's very natural because we look for inner acceptance from outward. We are not grown enough to have inner acceptance when we are a child. So the word that comes to me is belonging and always being on the edge of a group, of a family, and never feeling really belonging, feeling judged by something that one is born with and can't change, no matter how many layers of creams or whatever you might put on your skin or your hair. And not knowing what your fault is and always trying to be, making up somehow to belong, to be seen. Yeah. And then it becomes a habit of hiding and accepting non-belonging, and then dissociating yourself from that feeling of non-belongings. And so it goes. So it can happen if a Black child grows up in a white culture, because probably it starts in the family also. They tell the child to be careful because they are living in a white world. I'm imagining, yes, and it can happen in India where there are shades of color. And the question is how we make a change in this that has been part of our lives. How do we teach our children, how we teach our environment that perhaps you don't even know that you're doing this to one another. Yeah, this racial awareness, this racial sensitivity and acceptance that, first of all, that it is there. This it's in all of us. Yeah. So I feel very emotional when I talk about it, and I don't want to change that intense emotion, that in anguish I feel. I want to channelize it a bit in a way that we have these conversations, we become more embracing in a way that we allow ourselves the space to talk about it from a different points. So I really, yeah. So then I do my mindfulness breathing and say, I can tell myself I belong, and I can tell myself what was the situation as I was growing up as an Indian girl needs to change and do something about it in my own daily life. So, and yes, yeah, like Belonda, keep feeling that pain and keep letting it out and sharing. So healing happens, yeah. So yeah, thank you.
And if we just all take a moment to be in contact and to say, yes, there's a place where the images, the stories say what is value, what is beautiful. And how
Can I spit something out?
Yes.
Because it's coming like really now. The wound is the instinct. The wound is the wounded, like the not the wound, the hurt of the instinct. I think this is why it feels so painful to me. It is, yeah, like I kind of, but it just came out because it came now out from a very deep point. Because when Kanya said the pain that you have felt, or also that you have felt through me, and it made me realize, yes, I feel still that pain, and trying to give it the name, there comes like instinct woundedness. Yeah.
So if we just take a moment and settle, what would be the movement? Beverly, Susan, Ann, what's the movement you'd like to send from your to Belonda? How does that feel, Belonda?
Well, really interesting. It is. It's so old. It's so deep. Like it's so deep, that feeling, that experience is so old, and it feels actually not like being only mine. That is also what I realize. It's a really interesting moment for me, because I went a long path, and I feel strong, and it doesn't weaken me. I understand something about me by doing that, because Bilonda means the one who takes the pain. That's my African name, and I felt it in this moment again, and it was interesting because Kamna pointed it out. And it's a spiritual name. It is a spiritual name, and this is what Africa is to me. And this is what comes all the time: instinct, right? Instinct. And I even don't mind anymore having that experience. I'm just very much in touch with it right now. Yeah, thank you, sisters.
Can I just say that's part of who you are, Yolanda? You have to embrace it and hold it as dear, because that's part of you are also. Yeah. that's making of you. Yeah.
You mean the instinct or the
Hold it. Yeah.
yeah, I don't mind it, not at all. It's not bad. I think it's a place of realization that is really interesting. I take this name to mine. I take it, and I take it creatively. Healing is a big, also to heal is really not only me, but also to help others to heal is a big aspect of my life. It's a big energy. It's powerful. It is. Yeah, sorry to make this, but it's
Hold it. Yeah.
And I feel like a lion when it comes to that. I feel like a lion. Just this for others, not for myself anymore, but also for others, mainly for others, because I'm well now. I'm well. I have also you as a group. I have a partner. I look like I look now. I healed, but you've seen me where I was. And this was the good pictures. Yeah.
So, Anne, Beverly, and Susan, if you would be willing, I'd like to invite you to invite in your ancestors. And just to turn around and look at them and acknowledge that your ancestors, your mothers, fathers, these people behind you, there are lots of people behind you, your ancestors, they're there behind you. And to acknowledge that they created a world where you, by the color of your skin, would be more beautiful and more rich and more valued than a brown or a black person. And just to turn around and to say, yes, I acknowledge that you created that. And it's come down to here. So you might want to wave to them, or you might want to turn around, but to tell them that.
Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to invite my ancestors to this table, and I would like to say that I see what you've done and I don't like it, and I know that I inherited it somehow, and I don't like that either, but it's happening and this is what we're left with. So guys, let's deal with it, okay, as best we can.
I acknowledge it. How does it feel, Anya?
It feels quite vulnerable. It feels quite vulnerable, like almost like am I betraying something by stating it? But I'm being brave, and I'm just like, no, guys, like we've all been coasting. White people have been coasting on the back of this, and I'm prepared to own it and own it on their behalf.
And your shoulders are still up. How does that land in your body, Kamna?
I feel really touched, actually, and I'm really touched with your bravery and the way you say it with such authenticity and so much emotion. It really reaches to me here. I appreciate that a lot. You're a wonderful woman. Thank you.
Beverly or Susan?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Am I on? Yeah. I've wrangled with this a lot. I was never, particularly because, as you say, that because of them, I was raised special and with privilege. And I never had that experience in my family. I was the opposite. I was not given that. I was not acknowledged as being special or having privilege. So there's a huge amount of confusion and pain in everything that I look at when I look into this. And although on one level, some of my grandparents I could relate to, in terms of the story, I couldn't. And I struggled with it and I rejected them. And I remember going to Ireland for the first time and discovering the real history of Ireland. And I was abhorred. I didn't want British ancestry anymore. I never really asked for it. And so I felt shredded. I felt like I didn't belong. Couldn't identify. And yet I was very white. And I was adrift. And then I've come full circle to the place where I do acknowledge, I can stand firm in the place that, yes, that is in my lineage. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. It's full of dichotomies. And I'm very much consistently with, this is where I stand. I'm in South Africa because I want to be, not because I can't leave. Because I want to be here, because I love the where I am, I love the people. And if the people expel me, I don't know where I'd go. And I want to be able to to bring some kind of healing and acknowledgement and apology through my energetic expression. And for that, and I don't know how, part of me feels that it's possible, and on another level I feel so huge and so abhorrent and so radically inconceivable. And yet, so I go out of that full circle, but I come back to, I'm here, I'm available, I'm open.
And my invitation is to say, I acknowledge.
I acknowledge. I've said that. I acknowledge.
This is the world you created.
Yeah.
I was more valued and more rich and more beautiful than the brown and the black women. We're all women here.
Yeah.
Women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge that totally, and at the same time, it's, as I said, shredded, because I didn't feel it as I was. If I have to own that in terms of my personal experience, I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. But I own it in terms of my resident experience. I own it in terms of my lineage experience. That is what was created, and it's ghastly.
Yeah.
And I don't agree, and I don't participate, and
I hear you say I don't agree and I don't participate, and you've talked about being shredded, and I'm saying that I'm asking you to own that it's fully your lineage.
Yeah, I do. I've said that repeatedly. I fully own, this is where I stand in this lineage.
Yes.
I completely acknowledge and accept that, and I have done. And that is painful and ghastly.
Yeah.
Pardon.
And and if I may say, I feel you're being shredded at the same time, because the way you grew up, you didn't feel privileged as a child or as a growing up woman. You didn't feel acknowledged and privileged, or was not told you're seen, you're accepted. And yet your lineage through centuries of experience has
Yeah.
done things that you now have to accept as part of your lineage. So it feels a real
Yeah.
shredded feeling, and I feel that, and I think it's not easy. Just like my lineage taught me a lot of things about how to value myself. So I can blame my lineage, or I can blame the others who made my lineage do that. But the end is that we have wounded identities in some way or the other, and it's important to acknowledge that.
Mm. And it comes together with so many emotions, not only the despair, but the anger.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that. I didn't.
Yes.
It's here, and I'm in it, and
through no fault of mine, I'm in
horrified,
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
disappointed. So the despair, they're gone. What do I do?
One thing I really feel it is important to say, because it came up in chats and discussions, it's about the blame and the guilt.
Yeah.
It's not about blaming and guilt, the whole thing.
About acknowledgement,
And I hear that often
Hard.
called white people, and it is not about blaming and guilt. Blame and guilt is actually a Christian concept. That is a cosmology. Guilt. I'm guilty. I don't know that term like this. It is what is the problem? The problem is what we have here now.
Yeah, I don't feel guilty. I don't feel that. I just feel the
divided, shredded.
There's a range of emotions because I completely acknowledge it. I see it. I totally accept I'm in the lineage.
Yeah. And I hear that also from people, that they feel, as also white people, they say it is unreasonable because we have been on the other side. For example, we have been people who, like you say, and that is what I hear, that being overwhelmed also by that what is in your lineage, or in your lineage, it's also my lineage and our lineage, right? I just wanted to say blame and guilt, really, it's not about, not at all about that. Not as an answer to you, just as a...
And I just want to say, Susan, it's really, we can talk about layers, and sometimes in that layer of, when you say, but I didn't, and it's to say, and I didn't agree. And that's where it is, and if I disagree, what world do I belong to?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say that, because it was the but that I was saying. It's because it's an and that you feel shredded.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, accept that totally.
Beverly.
So what happens for me when I look at my ancestors is that they look so torn up, and I feel this sadness, and I acknowledge that we cut off other people's heads to make ourselves look taller. It was like, you know, we're so trodden against, let's have a group that's like, you know, that we can feel better than in some kind of way. You know what I mean? Like, that was like, so I acknowledge that part of my lineage of we feel downtrodden, let's feel better than somebody. And that I think that that's a contribution that we have as a people. Although in the lineage, as I say that, there are different colors. So that's interesting. I haven't looked at it before. But anyway, so in the Jewish lineage, it's very African as well. But yeah, so I acknowledge that we are part of constructing that we are better than others. It's just big crash.
And I would like to wrap up our conversation by just bringing in generations and ancestors and saying that this is a story that's been going on for 500 years. Creating race to justify power and plunder. And so I would like to invite everybody to just to say to the ancestors, yes, this is what you have brought me. And this question of race has been uncomfortable for 500 years. And so I'd like to turn around and give you back some of this. I'd like to turn around and give you back some of this. I'd like to turn around and give you back some of this. And can you sort it out? Can you sort it out? Can you sort it out? And I'm sitting here and I accept that I am comfortable and very uncomfortable with what you have given me.
Yeah. Think.
And I honor everyone here who has participated in sharing their stories, their wounds, and having a conversation about race, which is not about right or wrong. And then I hand over to each of you, and what would you, first of all, is there something you need before we separate? And then secondly, what are you leaving with?
I'd like to start. I feel it's a beautiful conversation and I'm missing many, many people. I'm missing many, many voices here out of the community. And I think it is like fear, it could be uncomfortable, but you see, it is not. It is not. It is super interesting and sharing, and I get to know you, Susan, and your experience, the way you grew up, and that brings us so much closer to what it really is than just lots of also projection, assumptions, and all that kind of things, and there's much more depth to that reality. And I see that when we speak like this and hear each other like this, then something is happening. And I, crash a little bit on the fact that I feel like, hey, where's the rest? And this is actually the only reason why this is not changed yet, because there's not enough touch with it. Yeah. And how to encourage people to come, especially people who had issues. This is what has to be done, you know, and this, how to bring that over, how maybe I can share how I came, because I was also like, should I, shouldn't I, you know. was an interesting process until I sat here, and I've just missed it's my class, my client. I told him it's too important to me. I just shared something really important and I cannot leave like this. And I do it not only for me. And he has 2 mixed race kids also. I don't know if he's angry. I think he's angry and it's okay. But this is what I really take from it. Fuel to, come, please, come to that kind of conversation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I feel really sad, and I think it's a really big sadness. I don't think it's one-dimensional, and it's okay. That's my takeaway today, is a sadness. It doesn't feel like a crash sadness. It just feels like a sadness that's very deep in my body, and I appreciate it. It feels very rich. One thing I really want to say about this is that this image has came up from the beginning of this class. Is, if anybody, I don't remember what it's called exactly, but Alex Gray, the artist, has a series of something called Mirrors, I believe. And I've seen the actual show. I don't know if you have, Kathleen, you're shaking your head, but when you stand in front of it, it starts with humans as being like chemicals, and then bones, and then a nervous system, and then muscles, and then the skin, and then you see the difference in all the color skin, and then you see the spiritual aspects, and that there's only this like really small place where it's like these made up differences. I know that there are cultural differences and stuff like that are some that are amazing, but it kind of lets you see how the way we divide ourselves is like ridiculous. But it is a body experience, and I know you can see it in a book, and I'm sure it's not the same as standing in front of this big picture, but I think it's a really relevant show when you're talking about race. So anyways, the image has come up over and over again, but there is some there, and I will say there is a big sadness in so many levels of things with this. So, but I appreciate this dialogue a lot.
Thank you. Next.
I want to say, I like what you say, Kathleen. It's not about right or wrong. It is full stop. And the deep sadness is there in all of us, I think. And it's a healing sadness, I think, vividly. And it's a rich sadness. It's a sadness of acknowledging what we can't change, but still acknowledging. And it's learning from that sadness, and by acknowledging, and the connection of this here in this room, 6 of us, all colors and shades. It's interesting. I was just noticing the colors and shades of 6 women here, and all very connected and very sad, rich sadness. So I just want to leave it there, an open invitation to continuing these dialogues, these conversations, whenever we get a chance. Yeah. So thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah.
for providing this wonderful space. Yeah. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Karina. So I too am in sadness, and it's a sadness that's familiar. And now I have a deep appreciation that it has a place where I can put it and show it and reveal it in my vulnerability in a way that I haven't had, although I have explored this in different arenas. I feel there's something else that is present here. I can't really word it, articulate it. So I feel very grateful and humbled. The whole turmoil of it is and what it was and is and now is very alive. I just really appreciate that we have gathered here, the six of us, that we are willing to be open and look. I firmly believe we have a place to take the healing. We have a tapestry to weave as women of many different cultures, backgrounds, race, whatever. I feel that the seeds of healing are here. And I would love to be able to be with that, nurture that, explore it. I don't have any idea what it looks like. I also feel missing voices, and I've tried in the past to discuss when I'm in America with looking for the voice of the indigenous American Indian, which I think is also missing here. But I feel held in a space I haven't seen, known, experienced. And I feel deep love and respect for all of you and what you have opened for and held for us, Kathleen. Thank you. That find healing.
And Anna.
Hi, I'm driving now, but
Oh,
I would. It's okay. It's been a real honour to take part in this. I thank you for the opportunity to be witnessed in my guilt. Whether that's right or wrong to say, but you have, and I do carry guilt over this, and I don't think that's necessarily wrong. But taken away, I will be focusing on continuing my own work on equality and, you know, the utopia that I want to create. The connection has been wonderful. Thank you. I've learned a lot. Oh, and it's brought up some wonderful memories of one of my best friends from university, who was a black lady who really went against the grain. We were both Christians at the time, and it was very much she didn't want to treat her hair. And we would have discussions about it, because we were both kind of like, well, God made us this. Why does society prioritize that? And it's brought back some lovely memories of those early discussions, and a wonderful friendship. So thank you. Great stuff.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for bringing your energy and your presence. And I wish you all a good digestion and integration.
thank you.
Let's have a bit of a song, Kathleen. when before going just
A song.
or a
Yeah.
beat
I want to
you
share
have?
with you. I just got
Oh.
in me just a big shift is happening because I really think racism is a great